What's up, everybody, and welcome to the East Coast Avengers. I, Dominic, one of your hosts, along with JT, Darren, Josh, and Christian, come together and talk all things nerdy. The East Coast Avengers bring you the latest news, topics, and opinions with passion and humor from all around the nerdscape. So head on over to anchor.fm/East Coast Avengers podcast, where you can listen in on different platforms and join in on the conversation.
It's time to get nerdy. It's the 30 and Nerdy podcast with your hosts, Josh Davis and Tyler McDaniel. Brought to you by Advertising Expressions, Encore Theatrical Company, Freddy Cat Productions. 30 and Nerdy is a Next Wave podcast and a Badcast Company production. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Join the conversation using the hashtag 30andNerdyPod. Find us in the Pod Nation on podchaser.com and rate this episode. Got something to say? Let us know. Email us at 30andnerdypod@gmail.com. Cheers to you, nerds. And now your hosts, Josh Davis and Tyler McDaniel.
What is up, Nerd Nation?
Welcome to the podcast where everybody knows your name.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. This is 30 and Nerdy, and I am your host with the most, residing in Nerdmore Manor in the ATL. That's right, it's the Duke of Nerdledge, the sire of the nerdy South, the sweet tea of nerdlosophy, yours truly, Tyler Blake. And love being joined by my co-host, as always, residing in the Fortress of Nerditude in the town of Morris. That's right, the juicy one, the nerdtorious JLD, the PhD of nerdology, Sergeant Sound Effect himself.
You like that one?
I like that one.
Hey,
That
everybody.
was good. Dr. Davis. What's up, Doc?
Man, I'm so excited to talk to you. I feel like it's been such a busy week. We haven't really been able to catch up a whole lot this week. I've missed you. And I was telling you earlier that I got up this morning and I was like, man, it's only Wednesday. Like, this week has just felt so long. And I was like getting into an argument with one of my students yesterday because we were arguing about what day of the week it was. He was like, yeah, so what are we doing tomorrow? I'm like, oh, tomorrow's our club day. It's reward day. So that's what we'll be doing. He was like, well, yeah, that's Thursday, but what are we going to do tomorrow? I was like, kid, I just told you what we're doing. I was like, it's reward day. He goes, Mr. D, this is Tuesday. And I was like, oh.
What day is it?
Why, that's right, young man. You passed the test. You get an A. Congratulations. So,
You get
it's
to move
been a long
on to
week.
the 8th grade.
I think, though, the reason that I feel that way is because I spent a long time in my classroom on Sunday. Okay, so fun little backstory. I was at a different school for the first several years of my teaching career, and in my classroom, I had done like this whole Spider-Man paint
Mural
deal, on my walls, and like I had red and blue everywhere. All the panels were like red and blue. It was kind of crazy. But over on one wall, my friend David, who's our logo concept designer, he is an incredible artist, right? So he came to my classroom and we took an overhead projector and we got like this clear printout of Spider-Man hanging upside down. We projected it onto the wall, outlined it in Sharpie, and he painted this incredible Spider-Man. And it was like a huge hit. It was famous in the school, right? So this year I moved schools. And I'm like, I got to do it again. I got to get my Spider-Man up. So I got ahead of myself. I did the little outline like in August, and I put a poster over the wall that said "Coming soon." My kids who listen to the show are dying laughing right now because they know exactly what I'm talking about. I had this poster over it that said "Coming soon." ... And I have been asked practically every day, "Are you ever going to really do that Spider-Man there? That's never going to happen." I'm like, "Yes, it is. It's going to happen." So my friend David and I, we finally get the chance to get together and spend a day on this. We worked on my new Spider-Man in my new classroom, and it's almost done. We got a couple little things left to do, but it's looking great, and the kids have been so excited to see it, and it's great. Once it's done, we will post some pictures so everybody can see it, so be looking out for that. But yeah, I guess that's why my days are all mixed up, because we spent so much time at school on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on with me. How's the ATL?
Well, it's good, man. Took the car to get looked at today from being hit, and basically this insurance company that it's the guy's insurance that hit me. The way they've got it set up is they look over the damage and all that and how much it's going to take through a partnership with their own collision people, and then they just give you a check to give to the collision people. They don't let you go out and get, overcharged by some other, collision center. And he said, you'd be surprised at how many times that happens. They'll give you the spiel like, we had to order a part from Singapore, and that's going to take this much money. And he's like, we mainly do it to keep, these collision and auto repair shops from kind of screwing you over.
Right.
So
Sense.
It was easy. I just went in, they looked at it, they wrote me a check, and I just got to take it to the collision center when they're ready to fix my door. So
it was like a whole hassle for you to even get to this point.
Yes, it was.
Man,
it was a ridiculous hassle.
Adulting sucks sometimes.
It's a trap, kids. It's a big trap. And aside from that, just been working on, scheduling for March for the show.
Speaking of March, March Madness comes to mind, right?
Oh, yeah.
But, we're not big basketball fans here at the show. No offense. There's nothing wrong with basketball, but it's just not our thing, right?
No,
so
it's not.
People are going to be caught up in the madness. We're going to be caught up in a little madness of our own.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. March Madness is upon us, and the brackets are coming in fast. Check our Facebook page or email us on how you can participate in our March Madness. All participants will receive a gift from the show, and these brackets consist of the best names of heroes and villains in the DC and Marvel universes. We want you to help us find our champion that will have bragging rights here at the show, and the majority picks that you choose move the character on. Fill out the bracket to how you see fit. Take a picture and email it to us. All brackets are due March 1st. Good luck, nerds, and cheers to you.
Whew, you made it through 2 Rockies for that.
2.
That's how you know it's a big deal. That's how you know it's going to be serious, man. It's going to be crazy because it was 2 whole Rockies.
It's going to be mental.
That it will be, my friend. That it will be. We are very excited about that. So get in on that, everybody.
Yes, we've had a ridiculous amount of brackets that I've scoured through and been tallying up. We're up in like the 40s now of brackets sent in. So it's been fun though to see different people's mentalities. Because like I said on the show last week, there are those brackets that are very cliche, very obvious, like who would win in a fight. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. Whatever your mentality driving your vote is, that's fine. But majority votes is what moves the person on. So kind of like Survivor.
I had an argument with a friend several months ago about that whole who would win in a fight type thing. And people may not agree about that as much as you would think. We argued about the Hulk versus Captain America.
Oh, God.
And maybe that's a discussion that will come up in March Madness. But I think Captain America would win. Okay? Yes, obviously Hulk is stronger, okay? But I think that Captain America is smarter. I think he would find a way to outsmart the Hulk and he would win.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thought process. But, everybody disagreed with me. But I'm out of this group of friends that I'm referring to, I'm the biggest nerd. So I was like, come on, I should win by rights.
Shut up, everyone.
Just, yeah. But anyway.
It's funny you say that because in our Next Wave group that we were part of, the Next Wave podcast family on this show, after I started, people started sending me in their brackets, and we got into a conversation on what if it came down to Cap versus Batman. And I said, that's interesting because it would only happen in the final four because it's ultimately hero versus villain at the final two. And so people started talking, who would win, Cap or Batman? And I said, my answer was this, and I'm going to see if you agree. If you give Batman the long game, if you give him time, he wins. But if Cap came out the gate using all of his strength and, was in full force super soldier mode, he would probably kill Batman. But if he gave Batman time, he would strategize on how to beat him.
So I'm thinking, when we get to our March Madness discussions, we're going to be, practically creating some celebrity deathmatch stuff here. This is how Batman would kill Captain America or vice versa, this is going to be a lot of fun. So everybody really needs to get involved with this. Plus, you get a gift from us, so that's cool, too. I mean,
every participant gets a gift, and luckily we have enough of these gifts to give out. I did not expect so many brackets to be sent in our first year of doing March Madness, but luckily we have enough to go around. But last week, what did we talk about, Juice? What did we talk about, Doc?
Well, it's funny you ask, my friend, because we were talking about the Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. And we also talked a lot about just Harley Quinn, too, because if you see the movie, it's basically a movie about Harley Quinn.
It's a Harley Quinn movie.
That's a discussion that we had last week. You should check it out. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you can find that on any podcast platform or our YouTube channel in the archives that we... fun thing about the YouTube channel is we don't post them the same day as our episodes go out on podcast. They are considered the archives because they are posted. The episode from last week won't be posted till probably next week. It's just how we run our YouTube. But you can find that anywhere, any place you listen to podcasts. However, while you're on your podcast app of choice, or if you're, at the Pod Nation or on podchaser.com, you do have a chance to rate our show. And what we hope is that when you listen to us and you give us a chance to rate us, you will give us...
5 stars.
That's right. That's the sweet spot. 5 stars. And we would be very thankful for that. This week, however, what are we talking about, JD?
Well, we're talking about a billionaire, a playboy, a philanthropist who uses his money to build things and to fight crime. And no, we ain't talking Batman here, folks.
No, we're talking about Robert Downey Jr.
Not quite there, Tyler. We are talking about Tony Stark and his alter ego, Iron Man.
Same thing.
Well,
might as well be.
Might as well be, because Tony does say, Iron Man and I, we are one.
And they have become one with RDJ himself. So, actually, we are very excited about this. The Man of Iron. What is that?
What? What are you talking about?
Are you playing? What is this sound effect?
You don't recognize that?
Is that his pulse cannon?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
That's a little weird over the phone.
Maybe your ears are just a little weird.
Maybe.
Over the phone.
Is that like when he first in Iron Man 1, when he overcharges it and blows the TV up and his windows and all that? That's what it sounds like.
Man, I don't know. I didn't ask for a specific one. I just typed in Iron Man repulsor.
I like it. It's perfect.
You get what you get. Why did you have to make it like that? Like it had to be a specific one.
Well, I don't know.
Why can't you just appreciate my Iron Man repulsor?
I mean, I'm very appreciative.
I have one question.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Just why?
Well, somebody's got to, keep you on the ground. So
on the ground, unlike Iron Man. And you know how he does that? He uses his repulsors.
Yes, he uses his repulsors.
All right.
Okay, I see you, Sarge. I see what you're doing there. Gotcha.
Hey, I'm taking it seriously, man.
You are.
So many of my nicknames mean nothing. I want this one to mean something.
It's going to. I think by the end of this episode alone, your name will have come a lot further than it used to be.
And that is why they call me Sergeant Sound Effect.
Mm-hmm. So we will get to all that after a word from our sponsors.
All right.
Encore Theatrical Company is a volunteer-based regional community theater that uses the power of the arts in live performances, education, and various creative outlets to cultivate and enhance the quality of life in the Lakeway community and the East Tennessee region. There is always something going on at Encore, from plays, musicals, camps, classes, community outreach, and most of all, fun. You can follow Encore Theatrical Company on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, get all your information on what's going down at Encore Theatrical Company at www.etcplays.org or by calling 423-318-8331. Come see what the rest of 2020 has to offer. 5 women wearing the same dress, Pippin, Frozen Jr., and even Elf the Musical. Come see what's going on here, where it's not just theater, it's Encore. Alright, time to talk nerdy to you. And I thought of a word this week that I would bring to the episode, JD.
Alright.
I call it con-funk.
Oh, I see.
C-O-N-F-U-N-K, con-funk.
I think I know where you're going with this.
It's the smell that can radiate through a Comic-Con. And if you've never been to a Comic-Con, you don't know what smell I'm talking about. If you've been to a Comic-Con all 3 or 4 days, depending on what Comic-Con it is, if you've been all weekend, you've smelled the smell. It's thousands of people in cosplay outfits, and some of them haven't showered all weekend. The con-funk would be awful. Especially you've got heavier people trying to be Deadpool, like myself. Like I don't fit in a Deadpool outfit, so I would never go as Deadpool.
There's a reason I've never cosplayed as Spider-Man before, because I just can't pull that off. But I did not have the con-funk smell. Okay,
no,
I was clean.
Of course not, because you showered.
But I know exactly what you're talking about. And
yes.
I've been to Dragon Con in Atlanta, and it's still like really hot outside, and people it's not all in one building. It's across like several blocks of Atlanta. It's a big thing. And so if you'll go into one of the Q&A sessions and you're sitting next to people in the air conditioning, they've been outside walking, and maybe they're wearing like a really tight costume, there is a definite con funk. So
Absolutely.
This is a real thing.
It is a real thing.
No offense to anybody who goes to cons and
no offense to anybody who's probably the cause of the con funk.
Unless you're the person who doesn't shower, then you need to rethink your choices.
But if it weren't for these people, we would not have this nerd word of the week. So
thanks there.
Here's to you,
nerd people,
con funk smellers.
Wow.
Thank you for doing what you do.
You can't get any better endorsement than that.
You can't. Why don't we go on to your favorite segment, and it is called
What You Watching?
So, JD, what you watching?
Well, I have been watching frantically, I might add, the Iron Man series.
Okay.
You know,
Me too.
Iron Man. I watched Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 this week. I had not seen them in quite a while, especially the third one. I had forgotten so much of that one. But we're going to talk in detail about the Iron Man in the MCU a little bit later.
Yeah.
I was also very excited last week about the upcoming premiere of Season 7 of Star Wars The Clone Wars on Disney+. That did happen on Friday. There's one episode. They're going to do one a week, which I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah.
Episode was, fine. Nothing. I've only watched it the one time. Maybe if I go back and watch it again, I'll catch some things that surprised me or whatever. But for the most part, it was just a regular old episode, mostly focused on the clones. There's like a group, a new team of clones that show up. I won't say anything more about it than that. But, it was fine. I was hoping for a little more stuff with Anakin and Obi-Wan and hopefully Ahsoka, but I guess all that is to come. So, looking forward to it.
Is it a really good, we've waited how many years since Season 6? 2?
Not for sure. No, it's been longer
3?
than that because Rebels has been since Clone Wars.
Oh, yeah. So we've waited years for this kind of...
Probably about 6 years or so.
Finale. Can you at least tell us, without spoiling it, that it's a good continuation from Season 6? Like, is there a time jump? Is it pretty much right after?
I think this is meant to be closer to the end of the war because Anakin's hair is different. It looks a little closer to what it looks like in the movie. I assume that's the goal. So, but there's no mention of time or anything like that. It seems like it just sort of picked right up,
Gotcha.
And a lot of that series is, it's anthology. Like, not all the episodes connect necessarily. So, I didn't really think about it in that way.
Yeah. I've been on, not just Iron Man, I did have a day where I got to watch all 3 of them sporadically throughout the day. But
you did all 3 in one day?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I took breaks.
Still, I can barely get through a single movie in a day. My attention span is just so short. I struggle. So,
yeah.
Good on you there.
And then I spent a day or two binging the movies that are on DC Universe, the animated movies. And I went through Justice League Dark. This story was a little odd. It was more centered around Constantine, which I can't say I know a ton about, just what I gathered from the Keanu Reeves Constantine and the show Constantine. I don't know a lot of his villains aside from Satan himself. But it was pretty cool. It had Batman, Constantine, Etrigan, Zatanna. It was pretty good. It had Swamp Thing for a little while. But they killed some people. It was pretty shocking. But it was pretty good.
Had you never seen it before?
I had seen parts of it, and I just was never able to finish it.
That surprises me because you're usually pretty up to date on all those animated movies.
I think I just kind of was like, going into it because I didn't know a lot about John Constantine, and just didn't really care. But I did like, there were some funny aspects where Batman is, he's kind of a skeptic. He's the world's greatest detective. He's debunked so many things. But when anything magic or religious happens, they always walk away from it, and he's always left there standing with his arms crossed, and you just hear, kind of like deducing, like, what the heck was that? But it's pretty good. Then I watched the 2 Suicide Squad movies. They have Hell to Pay and Batman Assault on Arkham. It was really good. Both of them were. But yeah, we've always said that DC is so strong in animated films, and aside from Young Justice coming back, I think that DC's streaming biggest sell is not just Titans, but the movies that they'll drop, the animated movies.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool getting to watch those. Both Suicide Squad movies were pretty cool. I think one of them, the Assault on Arkham, the voice to Deadshot was actually Dum Dum Dugan from Captain America 1.
I think I knew that because I watched it and looked that up.
You can hear it, too, knowing that. Well, that's all I've been watching, pretty much. And why don't we get on to some nerd news? All right, we got a lot in the news going on here, so why don't we just get on through it? So first things first, Batman Ninja. Did you ever see that, JD?
No, I heard about it.
It's weird. It's very weird.
I think they did some action figures based on that whole concept, but I don't know a lot about it.
It's just very odd. So, Batman Ninja is getting a live-action stage play in Japan.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
I wonder if they've heard the horror stories about Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark when they tried to do a live show of that. Maybe the Japanese know something we don't about superhero plays.
Like flying? Like how to do flight?
Yeah.
They may know how to do that.
I guess we'll have to go to Japan to find out.
Yeah, we'll check. We'll go next week. We'll check it out.
So when asked about Uncle Ben joining the MCU, Tom Holland answered with, "I'd rather see Tony Stark come back."
Do you agree?
I do not agree at all. I think that we need to see some sort of vision of Uncle Ben to sort of help Peter, overcome some sort of obstacle. Because we haven't had a lot of that in the MCU. Granted, we had a ton of that in the previous two Spider-Man franchises. So I get wanting to take a break from it. But I think at this point we need to see something of Uncle Ben because he is so vital to the Spider-Man story. And plus, with it being the MCU, I think they always do it right. I'm sure they would cast someone who would be perfect for that. And I wish that it could be Tom Hanks, because I think that he's missing from the MCU. I think he's probably a little too old. I don't know if it would be believable or not to see him with Marissa Tomei.
I don't know. They've made him look pretty young. I mean, and Captain Phillips.
Heck, they've got that CG deal where they make all the actors look young, and they did it with Samuel Jackson and.
Did it with Tony in Civil War.
Absolutely. So, I don't know if it's worth all that to get Tom Hanks, but I would like to see him in something. And I just feel like the guy who plays Mr. Rogers, everybody wants him to be your uncle. So, I think it'd be perfect.
Absolutely. And I don't see any reason why bringing Uncle Ben in would be a bad thing.
Well, and plus, after the Endgame, it's possible that there could be Uncle Ben in other timelines that we could meet. It would just make sense to me, So, that's just me.
Yeah, I agree. So, moving on. Legends of Tomorrow, or as I like to call it, the Island of Misfit Toys, is losing another hero. This season is to be Brandon Routh's exit as Adam. In an interview, though, he stated it was not his decision.
Ouch.
He's been a good addition as Adam. When Arrow first introduced him as Ray Palmer, I was very excited because I thought Ray was perfect for the TV, because we've never really gotten a Ray Palmer in the movie theater world. But if you watch all the DC animated, Ray Palmer is a staple, as Adam, whether it's the old Justice League cartoons, Young Justice. He's a well-known person in the DC universe. So it was good to see him. And, I mean, despite how we feel about Brandon Routh's Superman performance, he really showed out as the Atom. He did.
I wouldn't know anything about that because I didn't make it past 2 episodes of that show.
Of Legends. I mean, it's tough. Yeah. It's very tough. But hopefully with Crisis and now everything being on the same plane, it'll be a little easier to follow. But it kind of sucks. I'm sure it sucks as an actor to just be told you're not coming back. So, so moving on.
Marvel has announced that its new ongoing Spider-Man comic series is set to release this summer with non-stop Spider-Man #1. And
More Spider-Man.
Yeah, I've been really falling behind in the whole comic book world. I used to try to keep up, and I've just not been able to. Dad and teacher life has sort of wrecked that for me. Not that I'm complaining, but I had a comic that was recommended to us by our friend Carter at Tall Man Toys and Comics, and I still haven't read that comic.
I read it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's pretty good.
Getting around to it. But so I think I want to get an iPad and just read them digitally. I've really enjoyed like having the actual physical copy. There's just something about that I love, but it's to the point now where I just can't keep up. And I know they offer all those digital like subscription deals that you can get and just have all of it available. So I think that's probably what I'm going to start doing. I'm killing the comic book industry by giving that up, I think, but it's just going to be so much easier and more convenient for me. So maybe then I'll be able to keep up.
Gotcha. I agree. But at the same time, if you have it digitally, why not save some trees?
That's true too.
So, I don't think it'll kill the comic book industry to go digital. I just think they'll have to evolve. So moving on, NXT champion Rhea Ripley, who has become one of my favorites, real quick. In a recent interview, she let it slip that WWE has explicitly told her to abstain from getting any more upper body tattoos.
Okay.
Thoughts?
I understand why there's probably some sort of backlash, I guess, about that, because people should have the right to do whatever they want with their bodies. I get that.
Yes.
But at the same time, this is a publicly traded company where they have so many, multiple business deals, like with toys, video games, and all that stuff. And while I don't know if Rhea Ripley is like her real life name or not or whatever, but WWE owns Rhea Ripley, the character.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that about video games and stuff like that is like, if the character looks a certain way, that's the way you want them to look when the game comes out. But if Rhea Ripley goes and, does all this tattoo work or whatever, when the toy comes out or when the game comes out, she's not going to look that way anymore. And if somebody specifically bought that or was looking forward to buying that toy because it looked like Rhea Ripley and now Rhea Ripley's different, they're going to just wait and get the next one that comes out. So, that's why they don't want them to go off and get haircuts or get tattoos or anything like that. And that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the objections I saw online was somebody said, well, when are they going to tell Aleister Black to stop? Because he has quite a few. And then somebody mentioned, they started mentioning other wrestlers within NXT and Raw and SmackDown.
But Aleister Black is already covered. Like, he started out that way. Mm-hmm. There's not really anywhere he can put a tattoo at this point that people are going to notice it. Like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that. I'm not like a big Aleister Black follower or whatever. Like, I like him and enjoy him and everything, but I don't know all of his tattoos or anything like that. I feel like Rhea Ripley, she doesn't have like full sleeves or anything, does she?
Not that I remember.
Because that's a big difference. That's a big change,
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm gonna Google her and look this up. Speaking of coronavirus, I just saw a picture of Gwyneth Paltrow, and speaking of Iron Man, Gwyneth Paltrow with a mask on because she's paranoid about coronavirus. Yeah, so I'm looking at Rhea Ripley right now. She does not have any noticeable tattoos based on the images I'm looking at right now. Her getting tattoos would pretty drastically change her image. Aleister Black, not so much. That's not going to make a difference. So I get it. And y'all give me a hard time all the time about, I'm a suit and I'm the company guy or whatever. But I mean, that's just business. That's just the way it is. You want everything to be up to date and current so that it sells.
Yeah.
Next item of news. Randy Pitchford, CEO of Gearbox and one of the minds behind the Borderlands video games, has the Twitterverse in an uproar. He recently tweeted out welcoming horror director Eli Roth to the Borderlands family as its film director. The tweet was taken down a little while later, but not before everyone got a good look at what Gearbox and Lionsgate Films may be up to.
Now, you've played these.
I have.
And you like them.
I enjoy them.
You and Logan both. I've played a few minutes of the very first one, and I just never really...
I think if you played with us, you would like it.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. So what are your thoughts on a movie possibility?
I had never thought about seeing a Borderlands movie before.
It'd have to be rated R, surely.
Oh, yes. Probably if there's anything worse than RX, it might be
NC-17.
Borderlands. Yeah. It's pretty gory, trashy stuff, but in a fun way.
Yeah.
Eli Roth, he's pretty gory himself, right? I remember he did Hostel, right?
Hostel movies, yeah.
Hostel. I remember I saw Hostel.
Oof.
And I was in high school, and there was a scene in Hostel where they gouged somebody's eye out or something.
And the pus that comes out from behind his eyes.
They snipped her eye out.
Yeah.
And this orange pus starts coming out of the eye socket. And I was like, oh! And it just disturbed me so much. I went to school the next day and went to my biology teacher and asked her, would this happen in real life? And she said, no, there's no reason that would happen. They're just doing that to gross you out because it's a horror movie.
Gotcha.
Anyway, I don't know that I would be super excited about a Borderlands movie unless they took it in the right direction where it was really, I don't know, it has to be very funny. It can't be too serious. That's the only way it would work. Surely they would have enough sense to know that.
Yeah.
And with the success of Sonic, which I still haven't seen and I want to, maybe the video game movies are going to start picking it up and be done right. So maybe it could be a good thing.
I hope so. So, moving on. Though Owen Wilson, if you've heard this, is joining the cast of Loki. That's big news, sure. But wow, man. Wow.
Hey.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Who the heck would he play? There's been some rumors circulating that he'd be Kang the Conqueror, kind of pissed off with Loki altering time and all that. But I was like, Kang? Owen Wilson would ruin that part. I just don't see him as a... Okay,
Owen Wilson's a comedian.
Yes, when casting Owen Wilson in a role, you think maybe he's a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. that is the goofball. Or he's not a villain or a hero. I don't think.
I think if they hadn't already done Justin Hammer in the Iron Man movies, Owen Wilson could have been a good Justin Hammer.
Yeah.
King the Conqueror, not so much.
No.
I don't think.
Kang is a super villain. And Owen Wilson is a super dork. So
yeah.
Yeah. But shall we move on?
So the computer scientist who is responsible for cut, copy, and paste, which we all know and love, his name is Larry Tesler. He has died at age 74.
Cut, copy, and paste saved me in so many papers in high school and college, well as the notes for this show.
Cut, copy, and paste has saved this podcast many times.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Tesler.
Yes, rest in peace, and thank you for what you have brought, not just the computer world, the podcast world, but the nerd world. Thank you so much. So, moving on, one of the biggest things to come out of this past week, DC comic book publisher Dan Dido, however you want to pronounce his name, is out. Some sources say it was a firing. This comes along with news that AT&T is ready and willing to shut down DC comic book publishing if their new 5G editions do not increase sales. Have you heard about these editions?
Not really.
Well, one of the reboot editions of their new 5G or G5, however they're calling it these days, is African-American Bruce Wayne and Batman. And plus some changes to races of some characters, genders of some characters, some origin stories. Just trying to change things up, I guess, to get new eyes into comics. And if it does not succeed, AT&T, who now owns DC, and Warner Brothers, really, is willing to shut down comic book publishing. Ethan Van Sciver, an artist for DC, has added that this will be, and I quote, these are his words, this will be, with Dido out, this is the death of comic books. Because apparently he
For
was...
DC.
For DC, he was a fighter, a proponent, a massive fan of comic books, and knowing that he's out has scared a lot of DC publishers and artists that this will be the death of DC Comics because he was such a big fan, to be honest. So this is kind of scary news for the DC world.
Yeah, I hate to hear that, man. I would like to think that the nerds will uprise and send some angry feedback in the event that would happen, and maybe they will remedy
they
that
can't stop us all, nerds.
So I really hope that this is not the case.
Oh, Lord, I hope not. Because I've really enjoyed, they just created a new sidekick for the Joker. I cannot remember her name, but she is giving Harley a run for her money, and Harley is jealous.
That is part of the White Knight story. Yeah, okay.
Yes, Harley is jealous.
Yeah.
And this deceased stuff, like, I know Marvel did zombies first, but this DC stuff really saw sales increase. I think it's like 6 out of the past 8 months, DC has won comic book sales. And a lot of it is because some of these new storylines. And I completely am full force behind this 5G reboot. I mean, I think that all nationalities, all cultures should have versions of these heroes that we've grown up to. Like,
right.
Bruce Wayne does not have to be white. He doesn't have to be.
Yeah, he's not a real person. So.
Yeah, he's not a real person. It's just like some of these James Bond Nazis, these 007 Nazi nerds, like right. It being a woman, or these Doctor Who nerds that were pissed off that it's a woman. They're fake people. You know, it'd be different if someone had casted Mulan as white, because Mulan is Asian, and her story is driven by her culture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
These characters like Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent are not driven by their race. So, I'm all for this. I hope it's successful. I really do, because I would hate to see DC, or AT&T in general, make a terrible decision like that.
So, pretty big Disney news this week. Disney CEO Bob Iger, who has been the head honcho for quite a while now, he stepped down as CEO, effective immediately, and he is now serving as the executive chairman at Disney. This apparently, I have a pretty trusted source from a former teacher of mine from Full Sail. He was talking about the fact that Bob Iger was going to retire next year at 70 years old, and he deserves it. And in the process of transitioning to the new CEO, Bob Chapek, I'm not really sure on the exact way to pronounce his name, he is helping with the transition for a year until he retires. So
it's the end of an era then. Passing of a torch, end of an era, because Bob has been around since, Lord. We were kids or teenagers, weren't we?
It was 2005 when he
we were
was the
teenagers,
CEO.
man.
Right.
Almost 15 years.
He was a big supporter of all the Marvel stuff and all that stuff. So I'm not worried. I think, especially with him giving his input over the next year and helping with the transition, I think we'll be in good hands. And I'm not worried a bit.
I'm excited to see what's to come. Change of a regime is never a bad thing most of the time. Change is always good, even though it's scary at sometimes. But I'll be interested to see what comes out of this. If anything new, anything revolutionary comes out of the new CEO. So, last piece of news, Macaulay Culkin. Kevin! Is joining the American Horror Story Season 10. And I know you love horror. And I know you love scary things, JD. So I'm sure you're very excited about this.
I have not made it through one whole season of American Horror Story.
Dude, it's some of the best modern horror ever, and it's not even in theaters. It's on TV. Like normal cable, not even like HBO. Like, this is some of the best horror writing we have seen in years. And, I mean, it's gone on for 10 seasons for a reason. AHS is pretty successul. That Macaulay Culkin is going to be in one season is pretty exciting.
This is going to sound really mean, but I feel like it needs to be said. Macaulay Culkin kind of looks like an American Horror Story. I mean, I'm sorry, but have you seen the guy lately?
I think it's only right, though, that this American Horror Story should take place in the house that he was left home alone in. It's only right for that to happen. And like each episode is different scary characters trying to break in. And he's booby trapping the house every episode.
Maybe he's trapped in a world where he gets left home alone endlessly every day.
And it's just Harry and Marv continuously trying to...
And he has to constantly fortify the house to fend off the criminals who want to burglar his house. One child stands alone
the wet
for an
bandits
eternity.
Are back. Oh. Well,
a mess.
After that is the end of your nerd news.
And also, happy 71st birthday to the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Need a commercial? How about a promotional video for your upcoming event or production? Let the coolest cats in town take care of you. The professionals at Freddy Cat have the knowledge, ability, and experience to serve all of your visual marketing needs. They do feature films, documentaries, corporate videos, commercials, music videos, and weddings. You can reach Freddy Cat Productions at 423-231-2839 or at freddycatproductions.com. That's right, we are back, and it is time for us to... On Iron Man, Tony Stark himself.
Yes.
The billionaire, the playboy, the philanthropist. Iron Man.
I love it. You know,
the hero of the MCU.
He really was the establisher.
The godfather of the MCU.
I like it. Iron Man was co-created by the legend himself, Stan the Man Lee, and scripter Larry Lieber, and he was designed by Don Heck and Jack Kirby.
Now, Iron Man debuted in 1963 in Tales of Suspense number 39. And then after that, he received his own title, Iron Man number 1, in 1968.
He is a billionaire, a playboy, scientist, industrialist, genius, and, of course, lovingly snarky. Anthony Edward Stark, or Tony for short, he received a severe chest wound while being kidnapped.
While his captor's plans were to force him to create a weapon of mass destruction, Tony instead secretly built a mechanical suit of armor to help him escape.
Later, Stark developed his suit, adding weapons and other technological devices he designed through his company, Stark Industries. He used the suit and successive versions to protect the world as Iron Man.
And although at first he tried to conceal his true identity because he's famous, people know who he is, Stark eventually declared that he was, in fact, Iron Man in a public announcement.
I am Iron Man.
Throughout most of his history as a Marvel character, he has been an establishing member, though, of the famous group, the Avengers.
Now, some background here on the origin. Stan Lee created Iron Man to toy with ideas of American technology and involvement during the Cold War. However, as years went by, he adapted in storylines as well as with technology. And he had a lot of, like, his origin was in Vietnam, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when the movie came out, they adapted that so that it was a little more contemporary, and they based it in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
So it was relatable, like, you know, it made sense in the current time and was believable.
Yeah.
Which was smart.
Now, Iron Man has had a few different voices to the character in the animated world. The main actor to the voice that most people would know is Mark Warden.
Now, is that from the Iron Man animated series in the 90s? The one that's like similar to X-Men and Spider-Man and all that?
Yes. And he also voiced it in Avengers Assemble.
Okay.
The animated series. And honestly, if there was a voiceover artist who came close to what RDJ did in the live action, it'd be him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I know who he is. It's like I'm sort of remembering from the cartoon and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. A few others that have voiced him are Matt Mercer, Tom Kane, Adrian Pastor, Eric Loomis, Mick Wingert, and a few other one-off voiceover actors.
Kind of amazing to know that Tom Kane voiced him. Tom Kane is the voice of Yoda in the animated Star Wars stuff.
I know, it's wild, isn't it?
Well, at least in the Clone Wars. Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
That shows diversity in his voice talent, though.
That's true.
Very good. Very good. So, with 4 words, we saw the birth of the MCU. I am Iron Man. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. was born to play this role. These were words that Stan Lee himself said.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Stan live at, I can't remember which Comic-Con it was, but he was asked about his favorite version of one of his characters from the movies. Like, which one was just your all-time favorite? And he said it was Robert Downey Jr. He said he was just absolutely perfect. And I think that most people would agree. He's just so entertaining. Mm-hmm. And going back and rewatching these movies made me feel like, you know, I'm really going to miss Tony in the future of the MCU. I don't want him to come back because, as I've said so many times, his story was just so perfect the way it is.
Yeah.
That I don't want him to come back. I want that to be it. You know.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
I mean, even down to, especially in the first one, the way he would talk to the robot that messed up all the time.
Oh, dummy! Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, "Hey, dummy, over here, over here, over here. If you mess up again,
if you spray me again when I'm not on fire, I'm donating you to the city college."
And he really brought a character to life in a way that very few have. I know we've talked about live action performances like Ryan Reynolds, Margot Robbie, Hugh Jackman, but RDJ really, he brought it in a way that's almost immortalizing.
It made him a legend. I mean,
it did.
He was a pretty big deal before, and he had a rough period of time there where he had some drug addictions and everything like that. But coming back and playing Iron Man and just doing it so well, he'll be iconic for that. Absolutely,
and just to know that Favreau took a chance on him after all that stuff. I mean, they took a chance on him in the shadows of his drug addiction and all that, and all the stuff, going to jail and being in so much trouble. Them taking a chance on him being Tony Stark, it just goes to show that, I've said it a few times about different celebrities that mistakes you make in the past do not dictate your future.
Right.
Because the futurist himself, Tony Stark, was made so believable by Robert Downey Jr., not just in the direction he gave, but his look, his performance, his tone, his everything. It was just beautifully done.
Yeah, it was just like effortless for him. Like, he just made it look so easy.
Yeah.
And Tony was just always, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, he was just always at ease. He was always in control. He knew what to do. He was calm. Like, I was watching last night at Iron Man 3 when he goes shopping and he's like building all of his weapons to invade the bad guys' place without his suit and everything. He's just like walking around whistling, throwing stuff in his shopping cart. It's like, man, I wish I could be that calm in a situation like that, or any time for that matter. He's totally in control, knows what he's doing, confident, and swagger.
And it was such a build for him alone. They took a gamble, not just casting him, but giving him this long contract. I mean, we saw him in all 3 Iron Men, Avengers 1 through 4, Captain America Civil War, Spider-Man Homecoming, the end credit scene of The Incredible Hulk, and he's going to be in Black Widow.
Right.
Since it's a precursor to Endgame. So, I mean, not just taking a chance on him to play Iron Man for Iron Man, but to be in all these other outlets kind of shows that he is, you know, the web that really was weaved to create this Goliath of a franchise.
Well, and I mean, and spoiler alert, but that's what makes his death so meaningful, because he's been this established hero for so long. He's had this long story. We've grown to love him so much. And then when he sacrifices everything in Endgame, that made us feel it that much more. And that's why it needs to be left alone. And I know, you know, the Black Widow thing is before Endgame. It's pre-Endgame, obviously.
Post-Civil War.
So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with seeing him in that, you know, because that's unlikely to change anything about his story.
Yeah.
But anything other than that type of deal, no way for me, man. I think that it should be left alone.
You know, and I think what's made Tony a great character is kind of his entourage that he's had, and how he's interacted with them. You know, he's had, of course, his love interest, Pepper Potts, which actually in the comics, there was kind of a love triangle for a while.
Right. Yeah.
Between him, Pepper, and
Happy.
Hogan, his own driver.
Yeah.
Which is interesting about him is he saved him once when they met, and that's how Tony hires him to be his driver. Like, because he saved his life once. And I think it's kind of like, well, you did something for me, so I'm going to do something for you. He's always kind of that person.
I love Happy. If you think about it, Happy has been a pretty big deal in the MCU as well. Like, he's been pretty consistent, because just about any time there's Tony, there's Happy. You know, he's there. And he had a big part in the new Spider-Man and Far From Home. He was a big deal in that. So we've just really grown to love him as well, at least in the MCU. And Jon Favreau does such a great job with Happy. He's got a lot of the comic relief. And also this... You know, Tony is someone who needs a lot of people to keep him, you know, grounded. On the straight and narrow and grounded. And, you know, Pepper has to do everything for him. Happy has to protect him and do everything for him, drive him around, all that stuff. So I always felt like, you know, Happy's around, Pepper's around, Tony's in good hands. Because when he's by himself, he's a little bit reckless.
Well, and there's that moment, there's a few times in the original trilogy where Pepper's talking to him. And he'll make little comments like when he needed her small hands to reach in and take out the old core. She's like, "Don't ever ask me to do anything like that again." And he said, "Well, I mean, you're all I have, so I'm going to have to. You know, I don't have anybody else to do it for me." And when they're dancing, she said, "You couldn't do anything without me. What's your social security number?" And he said, 5. I've got the you for the other 7. You know. So he's not totally blind to how much he needs them at the same time.
Not at all.
Of course, he's got his virtual butler as well, Jarvis. I always get Paul Bettany, the voice of Jarvis, and Luna's dad in Harry Potter confused as actors. I always get those two mixed up. because they're very similar. And they're both British,
so.
I guess. So, Jarvis has always been, that voice in his head. And then, of course, Jarvis, we know it becomes the Vision, which has been great to see also.
And then originally Jarvis was a real-life person. Tony's butler was basically, it was like his Alfred, because he is so similar to Batman. But then they, again, with updating to make it more contemporary, and with Tony being like, Tony is basically like Tesla or like Thomas Edison or something. He's this big revolutionary scientist, and it would only make sense for him to have the best technology and have his own AI system to run his house and his computers and be his assistant,
Yeah.
So I did really like the transition of Jarvis for the MCU.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we also do see Jarvis, like the person or the character that Tony bases his Jarvis off of. He was the Stark real-life butler when Tony was a kid.
Yeah.
So we saw that in Agent Carter, and he did have a little moment in Endgame when Howard is getting in the car, and he says, "Thank you, Jarvis." So that was a cool little moment.
That was cool. That was very cool. And, of course, his best friend, Rhodey, who also becomes War Machine. And the weird thing is you first see Rhodey in Iron Man 1. He's played by Terrence Howard. Mm-hmm. But he is apparently very tough to work with.
Yeah, and did you know that Terrence Howard was the highest paid actor in Iron Man 1?
I did not know that.
I read that like yesterday, and I'm like, wait a minute. The highest paid actor even over RDJ? When he's playing Iron Man in the movie is called Iron Man? Terrence Howard makes more money than him?
Yeah. And,
something seems a little off with that equation, if you ask me.
That alone would have been me saying, you know what? We'll find someone else.
Well, I think that's what happened because I read that they tried to cut his pay for the next movie, and he wasn't having it. But I bet you that Terrence Howard was pooping his pants when he found out how much money Don Cheadle made after Endgame happened.
Oh, yeah.
#1 movie of all time.
If you just stick around and not be such a diva, you never know what'll happen.
I mean, I guess people didn't know back then, that after Iron Man 1, as great as it was, that it would turn into this big thing that it is now. So,
yeah, and I think
hindsight's 2020.
Kevin Smith has went on record saying that Iron Man 1 is the perfect movie. Not just comic book movie, perfect movie.
It's hard to find anything wrong with it, if you ask me.
It really is. And, of course, he's also worked with Maria Hill, who we have grown to love in the MCU, played by Robin Scherbatsky herself. Your girl, Colby Smulders. Mm-hmm. If you go back, though, and watch Avengers Assemble, even watched, I didn't talk about it in What You're Watching, I watched a few episodes of that on Disney+. And he and Maria do not have the exact same relationship that they do in the MCU.
Of
they
course.
Dislike each other.
Yeah.
But she's played a little more hardcore in that animated series than she is. Even though she's awesome in the MCU, she's played differently.
Yeah, I know there's some storyline somewhere where Nick Fury is, of course, missing or presumed dead or something like he always is, and Maria takes over as the director. So we might see Maria in the MCU again in maybe a bigger role. I don't know. I hope so because I really like her.
Maybe as we get towards Secret Wars, possibly, which we hope they're going towards.
I wonder, I assume Samuel L. Jackson will try to stay on as long as they will let him because Samuel L. Jackson just loves to be in movies. I mean, let's be real, Hey, I'll do Star Wars if you give me a purple lightsaber. Let's go.
Yeah, just. So. I think he's alive because I think I need my own Mace Windu storyline. I mean, I think I need my own movie. I mean, he just enjoys what he's doing. He just enjoys it. So why don't you talk about some of his enemies, though? I mean, he's not exactly got the most notable rogues gallery, if you will. Not like a Batman or a Spider-Man. But he definitely has some noteworthy enemies.
Yeah, several that I probably won't know a whole lot about, to be honest, because I was never, until Robert Downey Jr., I was never a big Iron Man fan, to be honest,
Yeah.
I didn't know a lot about him. I liked him okay, I guess, but I wasn't like a fan of Iron Man.
He wasn't an A-lister.
Exactly. Not to me, anyway.
Yeah.
So there's the Advanced Idea Mechanics, or AIM, which is a splinter tech group of Hydra, and that whole deal was a big part of Iron Man 3. Mm-hmm. What was the guy's name?
Killian.
Killian.
Aldridge Killian.
Yeah, he sort of created AIM, and we got to see that in Iron Man 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he's got some names like Atom Smasher.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that guy.
Me neither. Black Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think, isn't Kit Harington playing Black Knight in Eternals? Isn't that one of the characters in Eternals?
Ooh, let me look it up.
Again, to the Google. And of course we got Crimson Dynamo, which Crimson Dynamo and down near the end of this list is Whiplash. Isn't Crimson Dynamo and Whiplash kind of who they combined for the sequel?
Yes. Okay, yes, Kit Harington will be playing the Black Knight. So, yeah, I don't know anything about him.
The Black Knight always triumphs.
The Black Knight lives again.
Yes. So, moving on, you've got Ironmonger, who was Obadiah, played by Jeff Bridges in Iron Man 1. Then you've got Fing Fang Foom, which is like this otherworldly dragon.
Yeah, he's a big dragon, basically.
I'm pretty sure they hinted at Fing Fang Foom in Ragnarok. Was that not the creature?
If you tell me the reference, then I'll...
No, I'm pretty sure it was the dragon-like creature that went after he took Surtur's head at the beginning. This massive dragon that looks like Fing Fang Foom attacked him. And
I don't think so. I don't think that was him, because Fin Fang Foom is like massive, a lot bigger than that, and he talks.
Gotcha. And then of course we've got Hydra, which is pretty much everyone's villain in the Marvel universe. They've went toe to toe with many a people in some form or fashion, which was started by Red Skull. Correct?
Yes.
Hydra was like the science division of the Nazis. He thought that there were gods and all that, and he was seen as a kook by the rest of the Nazis. But then you got Justin Hammer, who I think is my favorite part about Iron Man 2.
Oh yeah, he was so good. It was Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell. He also recently played a very well done version of George Bush Jr. in that movie with Christian Bale.
Yes, it was very
He's
good.
just a great character actor. And he's playing Fosse on that FX series right now, and he's fantastic, and he can dance like no other.
He was in the Green Mile, dude.
Yes, he was. He was also
the-
in Charlie's Angels, the first one of our generation.
That's right.
He was. But he's definitely my favorite part about Iron Man 2.
I don't know. I really liked Mickey Rourke, though.
I mean,
He was fun.
Rourke was really good.
I want a bird. I
I
want,
want my bird.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
YOLOs.
Hey, man,
YOLOs.
it'll be okay.
I hear that Mickey Rourke is a garbage person, though, in real life.
I've
I
heard
don't
that.
know.
Somebody
I've never
said
met him, but
that,
I've heard that a lot.
There was a sequel movie to Desperado, Antonio Banderas. It was called Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Johnny Depp was in it, and so
Right.
was Mickey Rourke. And Johnny Depp said that he was just a jerk, just in real life, just a jerk.
I think I heard Jim Ross talking about it, because Mickey Rourke did a WWE thing a few years back.
With The Wrestler, the movie The Wrestler.
Yeah, which is a great movie. I love that movie.
Yeah, it really is a good movie. We got Kang the Conqueror, who we talked about earlier. It's more of an Avengers type storyline since he feuded with Tony. But some other names that we've seen, we've got Mandarin, MODOK. He's even had a tussle with Norman Osborn himself. Radioactive Man, Spy Master, Taskmaster, and of course, Ultron and Thanos. Now, Ultron he created. But
the Mandarin is really, I think, considered one of his biggest villains, like one of his, maybe his nemesis. Mandarin and the Ten Rings. Mandarin was like a scientist, so he was like super brilliant and all that stuff. And he discovered these alien rings, the 10 rings that gave him all these mystical powers, and that's how he pretty much becomes the Mandarin. And I really love the Mandarin in Iron Man 3.
The fake
what
Mandarin?
we think is the Mandarin. What's his name? Trevor or something?
He's an actor.
My name's Trevor. I'm an actor. It's not real. It's, who is it that played him?
Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley. He was hilarious. He was so good. I loved that. And then when he was actually playing, like, pretending to be the Mandarin, oh, man, he was creepy. He was
He's
scary.
so good.
I
Mr.
love
President.
the scene where, yeah, he's talking to the president on the video thing before he shoots that guy, and he's like, he's telling him, buckle your seatbelt and all this stuff. And the guy playing the president is just terrified. He's shaking because the Mandarin is just so vile and evil and intimidating. He did a great job.
Now, we'll get to see the real Mandarin in Shang-Chi, correct?
That's what I heard.
So that'll be interesting. So, the creation of Ultron, do you like that they made it Bruce and Tony as opposed to what it actually is, Hank and Tony? Hank Pym and Tony create Ultron. Do you like that they made it Bruce before we even met Hank Pym and them, or would you like it to be if you go back and watch that series of episodes in Avengers Assemble where he and Hank Pym create Ultron. Now, a lot of it is done very well in the creation of Ultron in the MCU, but it just kind of felt weird seeing it now this way with Bruce and Tony accidentally creating Ultron. But I guess, like I've told you, difference is good. It's a concept as opposed to like Nazi correct on everything.
I think it made sense because we care about the Avengers, and this is an Avengers movie, and the Avengers creating Vision, it all just sort of worked because we didn't really care about Hank Pym at that point because we didn't know him. We hadn't met him in the MCU. And I really like them doing the retro type thing with Hank Pym. Like he was part of the early days of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that stuff. Yeah,
I liked that. Now, Thanos, he's never really went one-on-one, but obviously he's an Avengers villain, which we got to see, no pun intended, the end game of this first series of MCU was Thanos. We were building towards Thanos, and I think it was so well done. Not just the casting of Brolin, but the slow build-up, how you always kind of something hinted towards Thanos at the end of most of every movie. I enjoyed it. But, he doesn't have... It's hard to say who's your favorite Iron Man villain, because like we've said, it's just not something we really grew up knowing his entire villain list. Or reading Iron Man. But out of the 3 movies, who would you say, did you like AIM, Whiplash / Crimson Dynamo, or Obadiah?
I think it would be the Mickey Rourke one. I really liked Iron Man 2. I feel like, I was talking to you about this the other day, I feel like I hear people say they don't like Iron Man 2. I think Iron Man 2 might be my favorite one.
Really?
Because I think so, to be honest, because one of the biggest parts of Tony Stark's story is that he struggles with his addictions. He's a big alcoholic, and it creates all sorts of problems for him. They didn't go into that a whole lot in the second movie, but it was still there. I don't even know for sure, but when his big party scene happens and he has the fight with Rhodey at the house during the party, did we actually see him drink alcohol, or was it just we see him drunk already?
He's just already drunk and he's holding a big bottle.
Okay, so we never actually see him drink the alcohol. I was thinking about that, like, man, this is a kid's movie, and he's having like this big wild party. I wonder if there was some backlash for that. Anyway, that's a totally another different story.
You know, you talked about his addictions. In Iron Man 3, his addiction is making the suits.
His suits, that's the addiction.
Yeah.
And that's why, we'll talk about it in a minute, but I had totally incorrectly remembered the ending of Iron Man 3.
Did you?
Yeah, we'll
Gotcha.
talk about it. I wrote down a couple things here about Iron Man 2.
Yeah, so why don't we talk about this? We won't talk about all the Avengers, obviously. So let's just talk about a little bit here and there about the 3 movies.
Right.
So Iron Man 1, it's the birth of the MCU, the birth of Tony Stark as a character for us in the live-action world. I think it was well done. I think it had fantastic moments now knowing everything that happens, especially even in Infinity War and Endgame. Just little dialogue that just came back around. I enjoyed it. I think it's my favorite of the Iron Man trilogy.
Yeah, it's hard for me to pick between 1 and 2. I love 2 for some reason, but 1 is very special. I remember seeing it for the first time. I actually saw it kind of late. I was scared I was going to miss it before it left theaters.
Mm-hmm.
But I managed to catch it a couple months after it was out. And, I mean, little did we know at the time that it was going to turn into what it is now. The biggest movie franchise of all time, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe with the exception of Star Wars. I just remember thinking, like, how perfect Robert Downey Jr. was, how exciting it was. You think about Iron Man when you're younger and you think, oh, Iron Man's a guy in a big clunky suit that shoots stuff out of his hand never really appealed to me. I just never was a huge fan for him. And that movie made me a fan. Much like Thor, I've never liked Thor at all. And I see the movie, and now I love Thor.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a good job, like, making you care about characters, even ones that you didn't expect that you would care about as much.
Yeah.
The special effects were cool. All the explosions and fight scenes and all that stuff was cool. Was it the first movie when he had the deal where the fighter jets are chasing him and he has to... That scene is so much fun. He's trying to get away from the fighter jets. They don't know that Tony's in there, and he's on the phone with Rhodey the whole time.
He's like, it's me.
Okay, call your dudes. And then he hides under the plane, on the belly of the plane.
It looks like a flea on a dog. So moving on to Iron Man 2. You love the villain of Mickey Rourke. And we get the addition of Don Cheadle as Rhodes. We talked about that earlier. Terrence Howard, it just did not work out with him because he's a diva. And we get a little bit more evolution into Pepper Potts. He eventually signs the company over to her.
Well, he thinks that he's dying. He thinks,
Palladium.
As I said earlier, like, I compare him to, like, Thomas Edison or somebody like that. He's this big revolutionary scientist who Albert Einstein, he can do anything. He knows everything. He's one of the smartest guys in the world. And he can't figure out how to cure this. It's like a poisoning from the arc reactor in his chest, right?
Yeah, it's palladium poison because it's the element he's using.
So he signs the company over to Pepper, who's basically doing all the work anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And we meet Black Widow in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Coulson. I'd forgotten how much I loved Coulson. I miss Coulson.
I do too, dude.
I as much as I love him, it's not enough to go back and watch the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show.
Oh, gosh.
But, I love him in the movies. He has this great line where they're trying to keep Tony hostage at the house until he can discover that element or whatever it was. And he's like, if you try to leave, I will tase you and watch Super Nanny while you drool in the carpet. And that made me laugh.
I remember that. There's also that moment shortly after that where he does figure out the element. And he's like, I'm playing ball, Coulson. I'm being a team player. I'm saving my life. And he's like, you going to stick around and have a party with me? He's like, no. I've got some other pressing matters in New Mexico. And, and that ends up being Thor. But also just Coulson's involvement also is he's in every one leading up to everything, the formation of the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that these Iron Man movies show really well as well, is how just intricate, just the little detail of Coulson being there is a big deal.
Do you know the theory? There's a moment towards the end when they're at the expo and everything.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, speaking of the Stark Expo, how much like Walt Disney is Howard Stark? Now, do you know why they named him Howard? So they named Howard after Howard Hughes because the original sort of basis for the look of Tony was based off of Howard Hughes, and he was like this famous American businessman and engineer, and he was in the film industry and all that stuff. So Tony's based off of him, and then so they named Tony's father Howard because of that. So a little nod to him, yeah. But he reminded me so much of Walt Disney. Like, makes me think of Walt doing the thing with Epcot, like this is the city of the future, and all that stuff.
Well, the ball in the center of the expo, it's like the Epcot ball,
right?
So every time I watch that movie and I see those scenes, I'm just like, how Disney can you really get? I mean.
But anyway, backing up, they're having that big battle at the end at the expo, and there's a kid wearing an Iron Man mask, and he stands in front of the drones like he's gonna fight him. And then Tony lands next to him, shoots the drone. He says, "Good work, kid." He flies off. There's this theory out there that kid was Peter Parker.
I have heard this theory,
and I think I had seen somewhere where like somebody confirmed it or whatever. But internet, so who knows? But that's cool and everything. But why not bring that up at some point in the future? If they want to go with that, why not in one of the Spider-Man movies? Or like in Far From Home when Peter's like mourning Tony. Why isn't he telling his friend Ned or somebody like, yeah, when I was a kid, this thing happened with Iron Man and all that. And maybe we see that for a minute and have that big reveal like, oh, wow, I remember that. Why not do something like that? Rather than, oh, yeah, it's like a little Easter egg. When you don't even see the kid's face and there's no mention of it again in the future.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like the J.K. Rowling thing where she just adds stuff after the fact. Says, oh, yeah, so this is what I really meant. Well, then say that or do something.
I mean, we've talked about that in the aspects of those YouTube clickbait channels where, like, they'll say the Russos finally explain why in Infinity War Wanda had less of an accent. Like, why do we need that now?
And since we're on the topic of that, I'll say this just so it's on record, okay? Because, again, I get such a hard time about, oh, I'm a suit and all that stuff. My one complaint about my big complaint with the new Star Wars trilogy is the fact that there were still little bits and pieces that they had to answer for after the fact because they made mistakes. They didn't answer, like the thing that bothered me so much about how Roz had Luke's lightsaber, and she said it's a story for another time, and that time never came. And I get the fact that they have this whole big expanded universe, they have comics, they have all these other things that they want people to be drawn to, and I get that. But this is the movie, like this is the main source. This is what the most of your audience will see, and this is something you included in the movie, and you don't tie it up later.
Agreed.
To me, that's irksome.
Absolutely,
but that's not enough for me to say that those movies were so terrible and I hated them or whatever. That's something they failed at, and I'm on record saying it because I don't want to sound like a hypocrite for complaining about that with Harry Potter and
I got you.
And Marvel and all that. So
understandable. I'll be fair.
Logan, I hope you're happy. That's your one mention for this episode.
I do agree with you that later on, maybe even if it was something small as in Civil War, Aunt May said something like, Iron Man saved Peter one time at the expo. Like, even something as small as like that.
Yeah, or like was it Civil War where he was sitting on the couch at the apartment? Peter walks in and he's sitting there talking to Aunt May.
Yeah.
Was that Civil War or was that?
Yeah,
Homecoming?
like even him goes, he could have said, like, you saved me once.
Yeah, or like if Aunt May knew about it, she could have said something about it.
Yeah. That's what they could have been talking about. When he walked into the apartment, it could have been the edge of a conversation. Even something like that.
Yeah.
It's definitely a ball that they dropped there. If that is a confirmed theory, whether it was Feige that confirmed it, or even if it's a theory, you know, answer it or don't answer it, or say it wasn't him. Just something would have been nice.
Well, I guess to most people it doesn't matter because most people see the movie and don't remember that kid ever existed and didn't hear that anybody ever even said that. So
yeah, absolutely.
That, you know, that's probably the simple answer to that.
Yeah. So Iron Man 2, we also got to see the beginnings of his dealings with the government, kind of. You know, because at the beginning he's in that court proceeding and that jerk senator who ends up being a Hydra member in the long run is just trying to take his suits from him. And that kind of also already paved the way for, like, Civil War. You know, he got involved with the government in some form or fashion early on. But at this point, he's against them.
As much of a tool as Tony can be sometimes, he has a heart, okay? And that's what it takes to change him or to get reaction from him or whatever. Is like, it has to be something involving people, someone he loves, or you know, somebody in need. That woman who comes to him in Civil War and says, you know, my son died because of, you know, the mayhem of the Avengers and all this stuff. That changes him, and that's why he's like, all right, we're going to get right with the government.
Yeah.
And that's one thing you can say about Tony is he has a heart, which is ironic because...
Proof that he has a heart, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Iron Man 3, we talked a little bit about it earlier with AIM and Aldrich Killian. What were your thoughts about this one?
Guy Pearce plays Aldrich Killian. Has Guy Pearce ever not been like the...
Creepy bad guy?
Yeah.
I don't
Everything.
think so.
He's like the bad guy that you really, really hate and want to punch in the face. He does such a good job.
And you just don't want to be left alone in a room with him.
One of my favorite non-nerdy movies is this movie called Lawless with Tom Hardy and Shia LaBeuf. And
oh, yeah.
Guys that in North Carolina that sold moonshine and stuff during Prohibition. He's in that. And he is like the slimiest, like, worst tool bag bad guy.
He's just a sleaze, man.
Oh, exactly.
And so in real life, he could be the sweetest human being. But
I'm sure he is.
That's his part. I mean, that's his character.
We said earlier, like, in this movie, we see Tony's addiction problem. Now it's like his suits. It makes sense that he is a little distracted because he's had his whole ordeal in New York where he went through the portal and he saw another dimension. He saw aliens and he's just met Thor and there's gods and all this stuff. His world's been turned upside down and he's having all this anxiety about it. So what does he do to, you know, try to distract himself? He creates suits.
Like 30 of them.
Do you remember back in the day when we used to play the wrestling games and you could create your own wrestlers? We would spend hours creating these fully
developed.
All these details we would put into their appearances and their moves and their entrances and all this stuff. We had
we had our own organization, dude, with its own pay-per-views.
That's what Tony does with these suits. Like, I'll try one that has this ability and one that has this feature. And, you know, we get to the point where he's at Mark 42, and then there's a whole army of suits we see in the end, which was really fun. I liked that that ending scene when all the suits are flying around fighting for him, and he doesn't even have to be in them. That's so cool. And
he does this jumping from suit to suit as he's falling.
Right.
Like, one suit will zoom in and save him, and then he'll jump to another one, and it was really cool. And I've been waiting to say this. You know the little lackey, extremist, bald guy that's working for Aldrich?
Yeah.
You know what else is in?
I feel like I've seen him before, but I can't figure it out.
You haven't seen him in this. He's in season 7 of Supernatural.
Oh, good Lord. Which episode? 2, 3?
I think he lasts till close to the season finale. He plays one of the main Leviathan. So that's where I remembered him from.
Well, I didn't see him in that's for sure.
He does look familiar, though. He's been in something else that we both have watched together.
Another cool thing about this movie Tennessee represent. He spent some time in Tennessee. We're meant to believe that it's the Chattanooga area, I guess, because he went to like the Miss Chattanooga beauty pageant or something.
Yes.
I got a little confused watching that because, we're not too far from Chattanooga. We've spent a lot of time in Chattanooga. I think somebody got confused in their depiction of the area because people were walking around in cowboy hats.
That's where he meets the kid.
Harley,
and not Harley Quinn.
Harley, who we see again in Endgame, much older.
Grown up.
Apparently, this guy has 3 movie deals, so we could see him again in the future, possibly. Not sure.
We could just see him in something as small as a Spider-Man movie.
Something on Disney Plus, maybe.
Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, that was his second movie, and it is confirmed he has a 3-movie deal. So we don't know. That's the cool thing, is he's dangling out there in the universe, going to be used again, and we just don't know. And I think that goes to the brilliance of Feige and this franchise he's built. But I think one of my favorite parts of Iron Man 3 is, Pepper gets injected with the extremist stuff.
Right.
And you think she's going to die, but she goes on this butt-kicking tirade.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to see.
I love when Pepper steps up and has those moments. And like when she shows up as Rescue and Endgame and everything. Love Pepper.
Absolutely.
And hey, also, Iron Man 3, shout out to local legend Dale Dickey. Dale Dickey plays the lady that Tony meets in the bar. Her son was the soldier who was part of Extremis and blew up. And she's like, oh, here's your files, now go, or whatever. That's Dale Dickey. She is from Knoxville. She's done a lot of stuff. She's been in she was in Breaking Bad, and she was in a movie with Jennifer Lawrence, and she did a movie with Emma Watson. Lots of stuff, and she does a lot of local theater. My friend Micah Shane has done some shows with her at the Clarence Brown at UT, and I've seen her there at a few things. So she's local legend. So again, Tennessee represent.
But I think that it was a great trilogy. I think 1 is the best. Iron Man's a fantastic character. It's been great to see him in the live-action world. And also sad to see him gone.
Yeah, but what a perfect story and what a perfect ending for the godfather of the MCU, as I'm calling him.
I like that. I think we'll stick with that. So other than that, I think I'm about spent on the Man of Iron himself. Next week, we are going to be talking about a very important subject to us. I am calling it Le Femme de Nerd. The
ladies of Nerd?
The ladies of Nerd. Because it cannot be forgotten that the Nerdiverse, as some people call it, has brought us some of the greatest female heroes and villains of all time. They cannot go forgotten because they have massive impacts on us as a culture and as community. My mom's favorite superhero of all time still is Wonder Woman.
Right.
And I think that there are sometimes in our culture they go forgotten. And they go on the back burner. And they definitely don't deserve that. They have had just as many, if not more, awesome moments than some of the guys in superhero world. So that's what we're going to be talking about. If you have any questions or theories about Iron Man or, questions about females in the nerd world, send them our way. Also, do not forget your March Madness bracket. By the time we talk next week, the deadline will have been here. March 1st, all brackets are due. And even though we've gotten a lot, I don't care. I'll keep working on them. Send them in. We want as many opinions as possible. And with March being next month, dude, we're getting closer to WrestleMania. I'm very excited.
I'm counting down the days, man.
I know, dude.
It's going to be great. We're
so
gonna have
exciting.
A wrestling spectacular episode
come
April, so be on the lookout for that, wrestling fans. and we will give you some live updates from WrestleMania when the time comes.
Absolutely, we will be.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
We will be tweeting live and Facebooking live from the 30 and Nerdy platforms. So please stay tuned. And again, if you are going, please let us know. We want to meet you. We want to take pictures with you. It's a spectacular event. It's the show of shows, the showcase of the Immortals, the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania. So please, let us know. And thank you to all of our Patreon supporters and everyone who listens week in and week out. Shout out to Next Wave and Pod Nation and all of our friends that are part of that group. JD, it's been another great conversation with you.
As always.
I miss you, brother, and can't wait to talk about the women of nerddom with you next week.
It's going to be great, and I will see you then, and we will catch you nerds later.
You've been listening to the 30 and Nerdy podcast with your hosts, Josh Davis and Tyler McDaniel. Brought to you by Advertising Expressions, Encore Theatrical Company, and Freddy Cat Productions. 30 and Nerdy is a Next Wave podcast and a Badcast Company production. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Join the conversation using the hashtag 30andNerdyPod. Find us in the Pod Nation on podchaser.com and rate this episode. Got something to say? Let us know. Email us at 30andnerdypod@gmail.com. Cheers to you, nerds.
That's all, folks.